A respected archbishop was mysteriously killed at home, and the brutal scene chilled even a 20-year veteran cop. The archbishop's eyes had been brutally gouged out. His body had been stabbed 78 times, each wound radiating deep hatred. Not only that, 4 fingers on his right hand had been hacked off, and a strange code B3215156 had even been carved into his chest. The victim's body was still warm, which meant the killer could not have escaped long ago. The police quickly sealed off the scene and launched a full-scale search of the surrounding area. Before long, they spotted a suspect near the church. A blood-covered young man was fleeing. He then seized a chance to cross the tracks and used a train to block the pursuing officers. But he eventually ran out of strength. Finally, the police found him collapsed under the overpass, still clutching one of the archbishop's rings when they arrested him. But what no one expected was that the killer appeared to be a 19-year-old boy who still looked painfully young. Strangely, the boy's eyes were filled with fear, as if he were the one who had been hurt, because the victim was a highly respected church archbishop, while the suspect was a thin, harmless-looking 19-year-old boy. The enormous contrast between them made the murder case deeply controversial. Once the news broke, it shocked the nation. People debated, some condemned the boy's cruelty, while others suspected hidden truths, and everyone awaited the real story. A famous defense attorney named Marty was also paying close attention to the case. He had once been an outstanding prosecutor, known for his sharp instincts and exceptional courtroom skills. But Marty hated the way justice could be controlled by money and power, so he left the prosecutor's office and started his own law firm. At this point, Marty desperately needed a major case to raise his firm's profile, and this religious murder case was without question the perfect opportunity. Marty immediately called his assistants and told them to start digging into every detail of the case. He then headed to the police station himself to meet the suspect, preparing to represent him as his defense attorney. But when Marty saw him, he froze. The so-called psychotic killer who had terrified the entire country turned out to be a timid, shy kid who even stuttered when he spoke. And his eyes were surprisingly calm, without any of the viciousness people usually imagined in the eyes of a murderer. After a brief conversation, Marty learned that the boy's name was Aaron. According to Aaron, he was an altar boy for the archbishop, and also an orphan. The archbishop had taken in, making the archbishop like a father to him. This confused Marty. If Aaron respected the archbishop so much, then why would he kill him? Aaron then insisted that he did not kill the archbishop, because there had been a third person at the crime scene. He recalled that as he went to return a book to the archbishop's room, he heard a violent struggle and screams inside. When he rushed in, the archbishop had already collapsed in a pool of blood and was no longer breathing. A stranger stood beside the archbishop, and before Aaron could see their face, he suddenly felt dizzy and blacked out. Aaron said this had happened to him many times before. He would lose consciousness, and when he woke up, he would remember nothing. When Aaron woke up and found himself covered in blood, with police sirens coming from outside, he panicked and ran. Aaron had explained all of this to the police, but they did not believe him at all. After hearing Aaron's explanation, Marty decided to take the case and began discussing a concrete strategy with his team. But Aaron not only had the archbishop's blood on him, he was also carrying the archbishop's ring. Every piece of evidence pointed straight to him. Still, Marty caught the one weak point in the case: motive. Why would a boy who had been taken in by the archbishop, and who saw him as a father, kill the very man who had helped him? This became Marty's possible opening to win the case. Besides that, they had to investigate the code on the archbishop's chest before the prosecution did. And since Aaron had mentioned suffering from recurring blackouts, Marty planned to request a psychological evaluation for him. This would not only help verify whether Aaron was telling the truth, but also buy them more time to search for useful evidence. The reason Marty was in such a hurry was that he had heard the prosecutor's office plan to assign the case to Janet. She was Marty's former colleague and ex-girlfriend. Not only was she highly capable, but she also knew Marty's courtroom tactics extremely well. In Janet's eyes, the evidence in this case was solid, and Aaron was clearly the killer. So winning the trial was only a matter of time. Even with a clever opponent like Marty, Janet was not intimidated at all. Later, District Attorney Shaughnessy went to Janet and told her she had to make sure Aaron ended up on death row. His attitude was forceful, his eyes were fierce, and his tone allowed no argument. Janet was filled with doubt, but his reaction also made her realize there had to be some hidden secret behind this case. But because of Shaughnessy's position and power, she did not dare ask too many questions. She could only nod and agree. With the first hearing about to begin, Marty returned to the police station to see Aaron again and warned him not to speak carelessly in court.
And once the charges are read, the judge is going to ask you how you plead.
Not guilty.
No. You keep your mouth shut. You don't say anything. Your job is just to sit there and look innocent.
Well, I am innocent.
Aaron's behavior left Marty very satisfied. After spending the past few days observing and talking with him, Marty felt Aaron's reactions were not fake. He became even more convinced that Aaron was innocent. Soon, the first hearing began. The prosecution charged Aaron with first-degree murder and asked the judge to sentence him to death. Marty argued a third person was present and requested a psychological evaluation for Aaron to buy more time for evidence. Because the prosecution had no direct proof that Aaron had committed the murder and could not explain his motive, the judge could not issue a ruling yet. Meanwhile, Marty's assistant went to search Aaron's place, but unexpectedly, he was attacked by a man. During the struggle, the assistant accidentally ripped off the man's earring. Although the man escaped, the assistant still found something inside the room, a photo of a girl. When Marty showed the earring to Aaron, Aaron immediately recognized it as belonging to Alex, another altar boy taken in by the archbishop. The girl in the photo was named Linda. She was Aaron's girlfriend, and she was also an orphan the archbishop had taken in. The appearance of Linda and Alex seemed to support Marty's theory that a third person had been present, but Aaron quickly rejected that idea. Although Alex had a bad temper, he had no grudge against the archbishop, so he had no reason to kill him. Looking at the innocent Aaron in front of him, Marty knew they could never win the case by relying only on Aaron's clues. So Marty went to a friend of his who studied psychology and asked her to perform a psychological evaluation on Aaron. He hoped she could examine Aaron's blackouts and maybe help him remember something useful. After arranging everything, Marty immediately rushed back to his law firm because his assistant had uncovered something new. While investigating the archbishop's finances, they discovered that he had a close connection to the South River redevelopment case. At the time, the defendant in that case was District Attorney Shaughnessy, while Marty had represented the plaintiff Joey. So Marty hurried to find Joey and asked him what had really happened. It turned out that the land involved in the case belonged to the church. Shaughnessy planned to use his power to force the demolition of the old homes in South River, then invest in a new real estate development project. But most of the residents whose homes would be demolished were poor, and 90% of them were members of the church. So when the archbishop learned about it, he directly stopped the South River demolition plan, which caused Shaughnessy a huge financial loss. This meant Shaughnessy had a very convincing motive for murder, and Aaron might very well be his scapegoat. To test his suspicion, Marty arranged to meet Shaughnessy that night and tried to feel him out. Sure enough, when Shaughnessy learned that Marty was investigating the archbishop's finances, his expression changed completely. He then threatened Marty and told him to stay out of things. For his own safety, Marty had no choice but to keep quiet for the moment. But this also proved that Shaughnessy was indeed connected to the case, even though there was still no evidence proving he was the killer. So Marty could only continue with his original plan and keep stalling for time. When the second trial began, Marty argued that there had been a third person present at the scene. Although he had no proof at the moment, the prosecution also had no evidence to prove that such a person did not exist. The prosecution presented various pieces of evidence in order, but Marty countered each one, arguing that Aaron had no motive to kill, just when Marty thought he could buy some time. The prosecution had already deciphered the meaning of the Book 32.156 code. On the archbishop's chest, B32 referred to a book called The Scarlet Letter in the archbishop's private library, and 156 indicated the page number. A line in the book had been underlined, and its approximate meaning was, "No one can wear a mask forever without eventually becoming confused about what's real." Janet thought the killer left the message to expose the archbishop's hypocrisy, and only Aaron, the daily altar boy, could know the library that well. Marty was caught off guard by this clue. After the trial ended, Marty angrily confronted Aaron, asking if he had underlined the line, but Aaron said he had never touched that book. Marty refused to hear any more explanations and turned to leave the detention center, but his intuition told him Aaron was lying. But Marty had no choice. The only option now was to locate Alex, another altar boy, and question him. After a day of surveillance, Marty and his assistant finally found Alex in an abandoned factory. Cornered and desperate, Alex had no choice but to confess everything. He had broken into Aaron's house to find a tape. The archbishop, claiming to exorcise inner demons, forced Aaron, Linda, and Alex to perform sexual acts on camera. Marty then went to the archbishop's storage room and found the tape. When he reviewed the contents, the obscene footage made him gag. If the tape were exposed, not only would the archbishop be ruined, but Aaron's supposed motive for murder would also seem confirmed. What made Marty even angrier was that Aaron had lied to him about this. Fueled with rage, Marty went to the detention center and demanded that Aaron tell the truth. As he pressed him relentlessly, even verbally abusing Aaron in near loss of control, Aaron's expression suddenly changed. The timidity in his eyes vanished, replaced by a chilling ferocity and mocking amusement. His stutter disappeared, replaced by a harsh, aggressive street-style speech. The boy standing before Marty was no longer the timid Aaron, but his second personality, Loy. Loy was a violent protector who took over whenever Aaron could not handle pain or threats. Aaron's second personality caught Marty off guard. He had always believed he was defending an innocent person, but now he realized his client had committed murder, yet was also innocent in another sense, because it was Loy who killed, and Aaron had no knowledge of it. At that moment, a psychologist rushed in. After a spasm, Loy subsided, and the stuttering Aaron returned. Marty had never encountered such a situation before, and didn't know how to proceed. Legally, one cannot change the defense strategy during the trial stage. The defense had originally pleaded not guilty. Switching to an insanity defense now would be rejected by the judge, unless there was groundbreaking new evidence. The critical issue was that the tape had been stolen by Marty, making it illegal evidence. Presenting it in court could even cost him his license. For now, he had to resort to a cunning plan, using Janet to legally bring the tape into court. That evening, Janet received an envelope at her door, containing the tape Marty had had his assistant copy. But after watching it, Janet wasn't happy about finding the murder motive. She knew Marty too well. The reason Marty gave her the tape was to stir public opinion. If the tape appeared in court as evidence of murder, the archbishop would be ruined, and both the jury and the public would sympathize with Aaron. Though Janet disapproved of Marty's tactic, it was the only way to prove Aaron's supposed motive, so she had to use it. The next day, DA Shaughnessy confronted Janet, harshly demanding that she destroy the tape. But Janet had already decided to use the tape as evidence, and she stood firm despite Shaughnessy's threats. But as the tape had been obtained illegally, she came up with an extremely clever solution. She first had Marty's assistant summoned to court and forced him to explain where the tape came from. This made the tape strong legal evidence, while shifting the blame for stealing it onto Marty. Even if the church retaliated later, it would have nothing to do with her, because Marty was the one who stole it. When the tape was shown in court, the room erupted in shock. While this clarified Aaron's supposed motive, many still sympathized with his suffering. Seeing the opportunity, Marty immediately requested the judge to summon DA Shaughnessy to testify. Marty's investigation revealed that years ago, someone had accused the archbishop of sexual abuse, but Shaughnessy had suppressed the allegations using his authority, allowing the archbishop to remain unscathed for years. During the South River demolition case, the archbishop, to protect the church's reputation, unilaterally halted the project, causing Shaughnessy a $60 million loss. From Marty's perspective, Shaughnessy had shielded the archbishop for 20 years, only for the archbishop to inflict massive financial damage on him. The archbishop's betrayal provided Shaughnessy with a clear motive, making him a potential suspect, so his rush to close the case was to prevent the scandal from coming to light. Although Marty exposed the economic conflicts behind the case, it was still not enough to exonerate Aaron. He was also fined $10,000 by the judge for contempt of court as a warning. Now Marty had to continue eliciting sympathy from the jury and the public to have any chance of winning. He decided to call the psychologist who evaluated Aaron to testify that he suffered from severe dissociative identity disorder. But this move met with strong opposition from Janet. She first argued that the doctor was not a dissociative identity specialist and denied the legitimacy of Aaron's disorder. Moreover, the camera used to record the therapy sessions had broken, leaving no direct evidence of Aaron's personality shifts. The judge ultimately ruled the doctor's testimony inadmissible, but Marty had already achieved his goal. The news that Aaron had multiple personalities had been firmly conveyed to the jury and all present, planting a seed of doubt in their minds. During recess, Marty reviewed the clues and repeatedly watched Aaron's psychological evaluation videos. Suddenly, he noticed a key point. Whenever Aaron was verbally pressured or provoked, Loy would immediately appear. Marty then devised a plan. He would exploit Janet's habit of using harsh language to break down suspects' psychological defenses, to provoke Aaron's second personality. Even without a clear diagnosis, this could allow them to claim insanity as a defense. Soon, the trial reached its final stage. Janet began cross-examining Aaron, speaking sharply and continuously forcing him to recall the details of the archbishop's abuse. She even presented the videotape to provoke Aaron into admitting his crimes. Provoked, Aaron trembled uncontrollably, crying out in protest, and eventually Loy's personality was successfully triggered. He leapt over the witness railing like a caged beast and grabbed Janet by the neck. The bailiffs rushed to subdue Loy, and Marty also jumped in, struggling greatly to pull him away. Finally, Loy was restrained, and Aaron returned to his original self, equally unaware of what had just happened. The entire courtroom witnessed the scene, finally believing that Aaron did indeed suffer from dissociative identity disorder. After intense deliberation, the jury ultimately found Aaron not guilty. But Aaron was required to undergo a month-long psychiatric evaluation and receive appropriate treatment before being released. Having won the case, Marty became a sensationally famous and sought-after attorney. Janet, on the other hand, was less fortunate. She lost the case, nearly risked her life, and having angered Shaughnessy, her job was now in jeopardy. Marty then visited Aaron at the detention center to inform him of the verdict. Aaron was overjoyed upon hearing it. After delivering the news, Marty was about to leave when Aaron called out to him. He apologized for hurting Janet in court and asked about her condition. Caught up in the euphoria of victory, Marty didn't think much, but he froze as he was about to step out of the cell. It had been Loy who attacked Janet in court, and Marty had never told Aaron she was hurt, so how did he know?
Well, good for you, Marty. But to tell you the truth, I'm glad you figured it. Because I have been dying to tell you. I just didn't know who you'd want to hear it from, you know? I mean,
Aaron or Roy or Aaron.
it don't matter who you hear it from. It's the same story.
It was at this moment Marty realized that Aaron had manipulated him from start to finish. Aaron didn't have multiple personalities at all. His timidity and helplessness were all an act, and he had fooled everyone with brilliant performance. Moreover, his girlfriend Linda wasn't missing. she had also been murdered by him. Killing the archbishop was not just about revenge for abuse. It was about his desire for freedom. He killed Linda because she knew too many of his secrets, and he feared she would expose them. At this moment, Marty appeared calm on the surface, but inside he was in turmoil. He had won the case, but lost in a deeper sense. He thought he was the victor, but he had merely been a tool for Aaron to escape justice. Dejected, Marty walked out of the courtroom, which was already swarming with reporters. But he couldn't face this long-awaited moment of glory, and chose to leave through the back door. The darkness of human nature is never meant to be glorified, and the limitations of law are never an excuse to abandon justice. To understand the complexity and deceit of the human heart, yet still uphold kindness and moral boundaries, that is the true courage to face all fears. The ultimate meaning of primary fear isn't to expose evil, but to remind us that only by guarding our inner light can we face human darkness without losing ourselves.